Recording in progress.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rahmat Budiman, the AAOU Secretary General, and I would like to announce the winners of the AAOU Awards 2021. We all have been waiting for this moment, and we are as excited as you are in knowing who have won the much coveted Young Innovator Award, Best Practice Award, and Best Paper Award, with 1 gold medal, 2 silver medals for each category. And of course, the most importantly, we will find out the winner of the prestigious award, AAOU Meritorious Service Award. Let's start with Young Innovator Award. As we know, the Young Innovator Award goes to young, energetic, less than 40 years old scholars. Each year, the Young Innovator Award goes to individuals whose papers show quality, relevance, uniqueness, and success and impact of innovation to the theory and practice of open and distance learning. This year, we have one candidate for the Young Innovator Award. The only paper was evaluated by the adjudication committees. 3 appointed persons as the adjudication committees were the chair, Professor Kandar Padas, Vice Chancellor at Krishna Kanta Hindikwi Open University, India. The members are Professor Ok Tae Kim, Professor at Departments of Media, Arts and Cultural Content, Korea National Open University, Dr. Yosef Sabah, Assistant Professor at Al-Quds Open University, Palestine. Ladies and gentlemen, let me now announce upon this assessment. It has been decided that the silver medal of the AAOU Young Innovator Award 2021 is bestowed upon Mr. Kamran Mir from Allama Iqbal Open University, Pakistan, for his paper titled Development of H5P Interactive Video Content in Moodle to Improve the Learner's Engagement in Online Learning. Congratulations to our sole winner of the Young Innovator Award. We hope to motivate you and every young academician to produce and contribute more of the ODL works and follow the footsteps of Mr. Kamran Mir in the future. The silver medalist will be granted a certificate, a plaque, and cash award of $250. Now let's find out the winner for the Best Practice Award. This award goes to the paper that shows significant practice developed to improve process, method, and show potential for such practice to be replicated and other institutions may adopt, leading to the betterment of ODL practice. This year, the adjudication committees of this award comprise of the first, Professor Alan Tate, Emeritus Professor of Distance Education and Development at the Open University, UK, as the chair. The second, Professor Ho Sung-wo, Professor at Department of E-Learning, Korea National Open University. And the third, Professor Yosef Abuzir, Professor at Al-Quds Open University, Palestine, as the members. For your kind information, there are 6 out of 11 papers which are shortlisted for this award. And here are the authors of the 6 shortlisted papers. The silver medalist for the Best Practice Award goes to and the gold medal for the Best Practice Award goes to Congratulations to all the winners of the Best Practice Award. The gold medalist will be granted a certificate, plaque, and cash award of $500, while the silver medalist will be granted a certificate, plaque, and cash award of $250. Now let's move on to the Best Paper Award. We also have the Best Paper Award, which goes to individuals whose paper has relevance of content to the theme and sub-themes of the conference and have a significant contribution to the ODL. The adjudication committees for this award were Professor Lee Kam Cheong, Director of Research at Open University of Hong Kong, as the chair, while the members are Professor Siti Aisyah Hashim, Professor at Open University Malaysia, Dr. Zahid Majid, Director of Academic Planning and Course Production at Allama Iqbal Open University, Pakistan. 6 out of 12 papers are shortlisted for this award, and here are the authors of the 6 shortlisted papers. The silver medalist for the Best Paper Award goes to and the gold medal for the Best Paper Award goes to Congratulations to all the winners of the Best Paper Award. Keep pouring your ideas into valuable writings, and we are always looking forward to more of your masterpieces. The gold medalists will be granted a certificate, plaque, and cash award of $500, while the silver medalists will be granted a certificate, plaque, and cash award of $250. Finally, the most awaited of all, the prestigious AAOU Meritorious Service Award. It has been the tradition of the AAOU to recognize outstanding individuals who have made significant and lasting contribution to the field of distance education and open learning through AAOU Meritorious Service Award, or MSA. 3 appointed persons who were also the recipients of the past AAOU Meritorious Service Award was chosen this year. They are Professor Tian Belawati, former rector at Universitas Terbuka, as the chair. And the members, Professor Wei Yuan Zhang, former head and chief researcher at Space University of Hong Kong, who is currently working at Beijing Normal University. And Dr. Nafid A. Malik, founder and former rector at Virtual University of Pakistan, who currently works for Commonwealth of Learning. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to inform you that this year we have received quite many nominations for this award. There are 17 candidates of the AAOU Meritorious Service Award 2021. It was not an easy task to evaluate so many talents and inspiring persons, but every single document we received has been evaluated thoroughly by the appointed adjudication committees. After rigorous process of the assessment, I hereby announce the winner of the AAOU Meritorious Service Award 2021 goes to Professor Dr. Melinda de la Peña Bandalaria from the University of the Philippines Open University or UPOU. Professor Dr. Melinda de la Peña Bandalaria has served in the Open and Distance Learning or ODL sector as an academic leader in the University of the Philippines for 2 decades. Thanks to all nominators who have sent us nominations for the AAOU MSA this year. We are truly grateful for the excitement from our members this year. Therefore, now I would also like to show you all more inspiring persons from the AAOU MSA nominations who are in the top of 10. Please check and enjoy. Well, first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the AAOU Webinar Series 2022, the Revolution of ODL. And this is the first of webinar we hold in 2022. Our theme of our webinar is the shape of ODL post-COVID-19. I would like to thank you all, AAOU webinar goers, and we hope that you are in a very excellent condition, although COVID-19, particularly in Indonesia and in some parts of our neighboring countries, are still very high. And our today webinar is very special because we have special speakers, and then also our today webinar is in collaboration with the AAOU, with the UPOU, who is celebrating the 27th anniversary. Without further any delay, I would like to inform you all that our president of the AAOU, Professor Ojat Darojat Embus, PhD, was very happy to join with us today. However, due to a very sudden agenda with the Ministry of National Education, he was not able to join, but he sent very best regards to our speakers today. And this morning, we were able to have his message for all speakers and also to all participants. And let us check his opening remarks from our president.
Hello, good morning everyone. I am pleased to meet you all again here on the new series of AAOU Webinar. On this fresh start of the new year 2022, let's hope for a greater year and be more productive daily. This is also the reason why AAOU is still here. providing beneficial knowledge forum for everyone who is keen to learn in its scope, especially in open and distance learning. On these occasions, as the webinar is in collaboration with University of the Philippines Open University or UPOU for their 27th anniversary, I would like to warmly congratulate UPOU for another milestones. We are from the OU will always be side by side to support UPOU as one of our institution's members, and I personally hope UPOU would always excel greater and more. Then, now I am pleased to greet and welcome our keynote speaker today, Dr. James Brown, the Advisory Board of the United States of Distance Learning Associations, or known as USDLA. Hello, Dr. James. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation today. Then, to the second speaker, Professor Melinda Bandalaria, the Chancellor of the University of the Philippines Open University. Hello, Prof. Mel. It's always good to see you again. And of course, one of the most important persons to lead our sharing today, the moderator. Hello, Dr. Tahira Bibi from Allama Iqbal Open University, Pakistan. Okay, our dear participants, today our webinar brings out the shape of ODL post-COVID-19 as its theme. This is quite interesting as we know how ODL has helped so much during the pandemic for the past 2 years. Yet, we also need to figure out how this practice would go after the pandemic has gone. Would ODL be still on favor for studying means or the opposite? Hence, we will get some insight and listen to our expert today to give us more ideas in regard to the mentioned issue. Ladies and gentlemen, keep yourself seated, have some snacks nearby, and be actively engaged. Thank you very much for taking time to attend our webinar. Stay safe and have a good day.
All right, thank you very much. Let us move on to our main session today. But before, let me introduce our moderator today. If I see the CV from Dr. Tahira Bibi, it is very thick here, and then I'm sure that it will need 1 or 2 hours to read all achievement. Congratulations, Dr. Tahira Bibi. But in short, I would like to read some very brief and important information about Dr. Tahira Bibi. Dr. Tahira Bibi Naushahi is a program coordinator and lecturer in Educational Planning Policy Studies and Leadership, Department Faculty of Education, Allama Iqbal Open University, Islamabad, Pakistan, from March 2011 up to present. Previously worked as a teacher under Federal Directorate of Education, Islamabad, from November 2001 to March 2011. She has interest in increasing the knowledge and enhance the skills in the field of education, where her creative initiative, ideas, and a genuine enthusiasm would allow her to progress. Dr. Tahira seems to love learning so much because not only doing her master twice, once again, because not only doing her master twice, but also did 3 kinds of bachelors. Bachelors of Arts from University of Punjab, Lahore, Bachelor of Law from the same university, and a Bachelors of Education from Allama Iqbal Open University.
postgrad diploma in teaching English as foreign language at National University of the Modern Language, Pakistan, and special diploma course in English language, the same university. Dr. Tahira was also an exchange academician under the program of ASEAN Association of Open University Faculty Exchange Program in 2016 with her research project on the comparative study of quality assurance practices in Allama Iqbal Open University and Universitas Terbuka. So now you visit again Universitas Terbuka, but virtually. But hopefully next year or sometimes next year, Dr. Tahira Bibi and also Professor James Ron would physically visit Universitas Terbuka. Dr. Tahira, the screen and the time is yours now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rahmat. Thank you very much, University of Terbuka and Asian Association Open University Platform, providing us this opportunity to join this academic activity in such a limited pandemic situations all over the world. So thank you. I have a warm word welcomes to all participants across the world to join this session in early morning from Pakistan. So good morning, good evening, and good noon to all participants. This is the first webinar of Asian Association of Open University. The main theme of this webinar is the shape of ODL, Open Distance Learning in post-COVID-19. Before starting this session, or inviting or introducing our one of the, you can say a learner intellectual keynote speaker, let's have few regulations to join this webinar and how to participate, how to ask the questions, and what is the format. So before sending your questions, dear participants, and those who have joined us this webinar, you have to ask the question, and you can ask the question to the our keynote speaker by typing your name, institution or the country name, and intended speaker to whom you want to ask the question, and then type the question in chat box. We have question answer session that we will conduct after the completion of two our respected keynote speakers. So once again, you type your name, like example is given in or display on screen, that Adam, Universitas Indonesia, and Dr. Melinda. So this is the example how you will introduce yourself before asking the questions. So question I will read the questionnaire as a moderator, and we will ask our speaker or invite our speaker to give their comments, feedback, or the viewpoint. Now we have another information. If you are interested to get the e-certificate, so first you have to fill the registration form in advance, and most of you have, that's why you are with us. So you have to follow the whole program, and after that program you will fill the feedback form, and the link will be shared after the program, and you will get the e-certificate as an participant or the attendee of this webinar. Okay, now I hope the regulations are clear to all our participants. Let's have an introduction with one of the Godfather of Online Sciences. I was so inspired when I saw the CV of Professor Dr. James Brown. Professor Dr. James Brown, I welcome you, and it's honor for me to introduce you with the participants of Asian Association of Open University webinar. And it's also honor for being a member of ODL system that we have such learner person. So Professor Dr. James Brown is the pioneer in online course development in public health and health sciences. He has been dubbed the Godfather of Online Sciences, and he recently has been designed one of the top 40 innovators in education by the Center of Digital Education. He is the former director of microbiology of Roche and an assistant commissioner of health for New Jersey, overseeing the division of public health and environmental laboratories. He is also the former assistant dean of College of Professional Studies at New Jersey City. He did his PhD in microbiology from the Rutgers University, New Jersey, MS in Health Sciences from the Community Healthcare Administration, Jersey City State College, and graduation microbiology, Rutgers College, Rutgers University. So he have a vast experience as a researcher, as a manager, and as a teaching faculty. So Professor Dr. James Brown, we welcome you with such a huge, heavy, strong, intellectual and academic profile. So yes, Professor, we have 20 minutes, although these are a very, you can say, a limited time, and it would be a little bit difficult for you to share a vast knowledge with us in such a limited time, but we have to follow little rule. So welcome, sir. I'm now hand over the mic to Professor Dr. James Brown.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen, and let's see if this works okay. Uh-oh.
Yes, technical team may assist Professor Dr. James Brown.
Let me see if...
Yeah. You are a co-host now, so you can share your PowerPoint.
Do you have the PowerPoint there?
Yes. Would you like
Can you put,
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened at this end.
Okay.
Okay, sir. We may use that time by sharing your experience, personal experience as a expert of ODL system. You may start.
I'm ready to go.
Oh, that's good. Good.
Okay, just to show you, then I'm from the New Jersey, very close to New York City, and I work for the City University of New York, the School of Professional Studies. Other ones, I've teach all over the United States, the University of New England online, Gwinnett Mercy University, Colorado Christian University, and I've been doing this for well over 20 years. If I could have the next slide. Okay, COVID has devastated it has devastated the United States for 2 years. It's been horrible. And now this is from the New York Times, and they say that COVID is in retreat and we're hoping that's true. Things are starting to get better, but I can't tell you the tremendous number of deaths we've had. And it really has affected higher education dramatically. Next slide. And here's the thing, the pandemic really pushed universities online. Before, online was kind of a minor thing, but all of a sudden, March of 2020, almost all the universities and colleges in the United States started converting their courses quickly to remote learning, to online courses. And they did it in such a fast manner, it wasn't done well as it started, but they've learned. But the cool thing is online courses have become a major part of the university system in the United States and beyond. Next slide. I was asked to help because I was known as the Godfather of Online Science. I was teaching science since the turn of the century, well over 20 years. And this was a brand new thing. And especially teaching science was something they needed for the students going on to medical school, nursery, that sort of thing, but nursing. But what I did in those 2 years, I basically helped any college or university that needed converting their courses from face-to-face to online. And what was nice, the Senate and the General Assembly of the state of New Jersey honored me with this joint legislative resolution, honoring me for the work of putting all these courses online. And there were many other professors that helped. And this saved incredible amounts of lives. I was a former assistant commissioner of health for the state and president of the New Jersey Public Health Association. I've still been there for 35 years. And let me tell you, teaching online and what you guys are doing, you have saved lives. Next slide. Okay, here I was in Scotland. My family's from Scotland, Ireland, and I was over there. This was 2017, basically talking about opening online laboratory science to the world community. And it's exactly, I've had students from all over the world, and especially science, because putting science online is difficult because you have a laboratory associated with it. And especially if you're going on in healthcare, going on to, become in medicine or a nurse, it's very important. Next slide. And all over, the campuses were closing, and online was the only way to go. And I went all over trying to teach people how to put their courses online. Next slide. A place that we started with, this was over 20 years ago, Ocean County College on the Jersey Shore. And this is Mark Labella here and I. What we did is we put science totally online. We actually put nursing online. The only thing that they needed to do was actually go out to the facilities, hospitals, nursing homes. So their clinicals were still done face-to-face, but every other course they needed to take was totally online, and especially anatomy and physiology, microbiology, chemistry. And this really started a whole revolution. I'd have to say that the president of Ocean County College, Dr. John Larson, just started this trend, and it went right across the United States. Next slide. This is what the student would get at home if they were doing microbiology. They would get a whole setup. They would grow up the organisms, biosafety level 1. They'd have their microscope. Everything you would see done in a hospital, they would do at home. Everything was taught online. Next slide. Next slide. And sure enough, they could do it right in the safety of their own home. And as they say, biosafety level 1 organisms, easy way to go. Next slide. the other thing is, and this is you should do with your students, make sure they're in the course. So what I would do, I would see them, if they didn't show up in 48 hours, I gave them a phone call. And the other thing they do, especially with social media, it's another way of contacting the students and asking what's going on and making sure they're connected to that course. Next slide. And now the cool thing here is this program, the students who went through it online, science and all the rest of that, when they took the RN exam, the NCLEX, 100% pass rate, 100%, as opposed to the ones who took it face-to-face, 88%. To a lot of faculty nationwide, this really changed their attitude about online courses and how good they were. Next slide. It's been a tough few years. You can see this one was August of 2020. Our community colleges, their two-year schools throughout the country, all of a sudden had a big decline, but especially with COVID-19, we've lost students. Next slide. And this is the Chronicle of Higher Education, and this just came out. This was in February, this month. And they're talking about how the mistake we made was overbuilding our campuses. They've overbuilt it, but you know what? And this is even before COVID-19 hit, but the mass exodus into online courses has made things a lot different. There's a lot of campus that they don't need anymore. Next slide. And here's the thing, as far as mental health, all the kids, the students and the kids, they're not kids anymore. Many of the students, they're not 18 and 20 like they used to be. They're more like in their 30s and that sort of things. But the loss of that physical contact with their friends at school and elsewhere, and having to do all their work online, out of their bedrooms, created all sorts of mental health problems. And there were many suicides. Next slide. This really hit me. In March of 2020, I had one of my students, it took 2 months, but they lost 5 members of their family to COVID-19. It really devastated the whole area. And as a public health expert, it really, considering what happened to the pandemic in 1918, this one affected the whole world just like that, and maybe even worse. But it just, I saw it with my eyes. So many dead bodies, they couldn't even bury them fast enough. And the students losing members of their family. Next slide. So meeting with all these professors and saying, okay, we got to get your course totally online. So sure enough, they use Zoom. Well, the trouble is they would take the lectures that they did and just do a Zoom presentation, a 2-hour lecture. And guess what? Puts the students to sleep. You can take pieces of it and put it on, but not a 2-hour lecture. I'm sorry, that's not the way to go. Next slide. And here you see the Zoom fatigue. So many people, when you're designing the course, like let's say I'm teaching microbiology, well, one thing you teach is what's called the Gram stain. So you see the bacteria under the microscope. The average TV commercial in the United States is 20 seconds long. After that, you have them for a little bit of time before they start to lose interest and go to sleep. So my average, putting up a nice little video, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, that kind of thing. That's what you've got to do. Don't go for, if you got a bunch to say, have a whole bunch of them. It's easy because they can watch it over and over again. Next slide. Okay, the other thing is using mentors. And all of you in this conference, you've got an expertise that can be used as mentors. What I did early on, I was teaching, one of the first in the United States to teach public health online. I was with the New Jersey Public Health Association. I tapped into all the people who who were in public health and had them mentoring the students. That's a good way of having the students stay. And another thing, I was teaching many who were going on to nursing. Sure enough, I introduced them to nurses, and those were wonderful mentors. So think about mentoring. It's a great way of keeping students, especially online. Next slide. And here's from the University World News here. And things are happening on this side of the world that's fantastic. This one says, is India ready for the onset of all digital universities? And I think that's a fantastic thing. And this one, February 1st, 2022, the Union Budget of India announced the establishment of the country's first centrally run digital university. And they're planning on making it absolute world class. Next slide. Next slide. And here we have this one. You got the problem here. Oh, okay. This is slightly different. Also, University World News. Beyond regions, a global role for university associations. You got to connect with other groups. It's a war-torn world out there, and needless to say, in the news today. But it's really cool where you actually have these universities reaching out and working with each other. Next slide. And here, this is China. China is about to regulate artificial intelligence, and it's going to cover algorithms that set prices, control search results, recommend videos, and filter content. Let me tell you, there's a whole bunch of people out there trying to make a lot of money off of what's going on, and I think by regulating artificial intelligence might be a good idea to keep the, not charging extra money when they shouldn't be, that kind of thing. Next slide. And this is from the Vietnam Net Global. And this is a problem we have all over, is cheating going on in universities. There's so many groups out there very willing to help students cheat online and make a buck doing it. So when you design your courses, you got to design them so that it's difficult for students to cheat. Next slide. And here's 4 trends that this is from the World Economic Forum, 4 trends that will shape the future of higher education. One thing is learning from everywhere. And that's what I think is absolutely wonderful about this organization, because you have people all over here in Asia working together to make this work. Replace lectures with active learning. You don't want to have the lectures where the students are sitting there listening to a professor for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. You want to build in active learning, and especially online. It's there. Teaching skills that will remain relevant in its changing world. And that's where, especially using mentors, it helps the student realize, okay, this is why I'm learning this. And using formative assessment instead of high-stake exams, it encourages students to actually improve their performance rather than just have it evaluated. I'll show you later on what I use with that. Next slide. One tip I use quality online discussions, and I pull something out from the news. So this is absolutely new. The first one, ABCs, acknowledge the student's input. B, build on students' ideas by adding content, perspectives, experience, reference to the readings, etc. And last, you conclude with a focused follow-up question for the class. Generally, in most courses, you'll see that runs for a week. Students learn a lot from this. It's a great way to go. Next slide. And here, I just want to tell you, make your videos, short, quick videos, whether you're using Zoom, your own camera, smartphone, what have you. It's a great way to go. Those little things are really capture their attention. Keep them short, sweet, to the point. Next slide. And here's ones I want to tell you about. See these books, Anatomy and Physiology, Microbiology? No matter where you are in Asia, you can get these free of charge as soon as you hook to the internet. And this is called OpenStax. I use them all the time by Rice University. They're top notch. And what they've done, they've thrown a ton of things in there, especially the exams and stuff. It's wonderful. And the other one I want to tell you about is SoftChalk. You do have to pay for them, but their detail, especially interactive activities, they're top notch. I really love them. Next slide. And I just wanted to share you this. This is a U.S. soldier, was in Afghanistan, one of my students, and she said it was like moments of sheer terror, because this is when, you know, there was active military activities there. But she said it was absolutely followed by days of boredom. And in those days of boredom, she was doing online courses and getting a bachelor's degree. That's a very cool thing, what online can do. Next slide. And here's one of my students from Rutgers University, the former president of the Student Veterans Organization. Because they moved around so much, they take 3 credits here, 9 credits there, that sort of thing. And many institutions didn't want to grant them credit. Oh, no, you got to take that course here, that kind of thing. Well, that has changed. And now there's many universities will put those credits together and make a few extras they need online. Bingo, they got a bachelor's degree. This is great. Next slide. Okay, this is finishing up here. This is from Inside Education. As we redesign our programs, remember this. Now, this is United States statistics here. 40% of today's students work full time. That's where online really comes in. 57% live independently without the support of their parents. Nearly 25% have children of their own. 42% are students of color, and 46% are first-generation college students. My parents came from Scotland. Guess what? I was a first-generation student. My dad took the job at Rutgers University so I could go there free of charge. Colleges in the United States are extremely expensive, and you've got to have things like this to make it work. And I've shared with you ideas. Next slide. I just want to say I'm writing a book with Dr. Stan Races here, teaching laboratory science courses totally online from iUniverse. It should be out this coming summer. Hopefully that helps. Next slide. Last slide. I wanted to share with you my address, 107 Lakewood Road, Neptune, New Jersey, in the United States. My cell or text, 732-861-6854. And there's my email address, drjameswbrown@gmail.com. Do not be afraid to contact me or your friends who need help with online courses, ideas, that sort of thing. I'll share my knowledge. And I think that's the beautiful thing of you who teach online. I've never found professors so open to share their feelings with other professors and help students. We really are saving lives with online education. I think it's wonderful what your institution does. God bless you. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And I'll be taking questions at the end sometime, but thank you.
Thank you, Professor James Brown. You have completed your viewpoint within a time. I have a few highlights. I learned a lot from your presentation. One thing is that putting science online is very difficult, and teaching online is actually saving the life. So save life, teach online is the slogan of ODL system. And you have covered your presentation into two to three different, you can say, parts. One is the major challenges, and ODL students during the pandemic they face, particularly a formal system students, that is the lack of interaction and contact with the students and the teachers. Then they have a distraction. They are facing the uncertainty about the future, uncertainty about the end of pandemic, the fear of death, fear, uncertainty of life. You can't even, you can say, you feel that, and as a child or a person who is in a learning phase, they have a very optimistic and positive attitude towards life. So they are willing to do something for or achieve the target from the life. So at that stage, to demotivating by the effect of pandemic, and to that affect their mental health, their physical well-being. The physically they isolated, but virtually they are connecting. So ODL system and online system provide little bit, you can say, and now it is a strong forum to stay connect, not only with the persons, your friends, the teachers, but you have a horizon or open to access the education from all over the world. And definitely, this system provide us a cost-effective system to get the education from developed countries, or access the education to the developing country students to learn from the professors like you. So thank you, Professor. You have given us such ideas, in which you have also added the 4 trends that will shape the future of higher education, in which the one is the learning from everywhere and replacing lecture with the active learning, teaching skills that remain relevant in the changing world, and the other element, that is the assessment system. Yes, now we are not only delivering the sessions online, but we are also transferring all the education system in a digital transformation era. From admission till the examination, we have such systems like CMS system, like LMS learning management system, through which we can interact, we can continue our academic activities in the form of submission assignments, in the form of delivering lecture, interaction. We have chat box, we have video conferencing, sharing the unlimited content with different form of content like videos, heavy books, huge knowledge. We can easily share that with our students. And the last one, the challenging part, is the assessment system or the examination system. We tried in Allama Iqbal Open University as giving the such challenging assignment. The development of the question and the task would be in such a nature that student have to complete that by, and we have one more thing I must add, that during assessment system, we have to change the mindset of not just to share the check the knowledge of the system learner or the students, but we have to follow that exams are also enhancing a forum to enhance the knowledge of the student, which he haven't get or taken seriously during the assessment assignments or the session time. So when we think like that this is also giving the knowledge to the students during the assessment, so they learn during assessment. So we change the type of a question, we have to reconsider the criteria, we have to reconsider the assessment questions from the students. So thank you very much, Professor James, and please stay with us. We have one other learner, you can say the expert from the ODL system. So let's have a quick, you can say, reconsider the rule and the regulations, how to ask the question, and from where you can get the certificate. So dear participants, once again, those who have joined us, I welcome you all in Asian Association Open University first 2022 webinar that is about the shape of ODL post-COVID. So if you want to ask question, you can ask in chat box, and before sending your question, you have to write the detail as your name, institution, country from where you are, and from whom to ask the question. Like example is there, you write your name. Like if I want to ask the question, I will write Tahira, and I am from Allama Iqbal Open University, and I want to ask the question either Professor Dr. James Brown or our next worthy speaker. So a question will be firstly read by I will read the question, and then it will display on the screen, and our moderator, as a moderator, I will facilitate that and ask the question to the speaker to answer those questions. And here, those who are as a participant want to get their participant certificates, so you have opportunity first to fill your registration form and follow the whole program, and after that there will be a paired program, you can say a link on which you will get the fill the feedback form, and you can get the e-form from the Asian Association representing university, that is University of Trabuca. They are managing all these actually activities and providing us that platform and intellectual platform. Now, let's have another session. Our worthy speaker, Professor Dr. Melinda Bandalaria. Professor Dr. Melinda is the Chancellor of University of Philippines Open University. Professor Melinda is an active member of International Council of Distance Education Board from 2021 to 25. He has more than 20 years of teaching and research expertise and work in ODL system. So Professor Dr. Melinda, she has a lot of awards in distance education. Few of them I will, it's my honor to share that with you people. That is the receipt of second Power Panglo of Excellence in Public Services in 2017, one UP Professional Chair Award for Teaching and Public Service 2016, 2018, 2019, and then to 2020. She also received 2014 Alumni Association Outstanding Alumni Award and the Development Communication Outstanding Alumni Award. She have a rich experience of research in the project and in a publication in open distance learning. So it's honor for us again and source of pride to have with us such a rich, experienced personality, Professor Dr. Melinda. So I would request Professor Dr. Melinda for having her opinions and point of view share with us with all the participants. So Professor Dr. Melinda, the mic is for you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Tahira Bibi, and it's an honor, a pleasure, a privilege to be with you on this virtual stage together with Dr. James Brown. And let me thank also our rector of Universitas Terbuka for the greetings and anniversary wishes in his message earlier. Also congratulate our AAOU Secretariat, of course, led by our Secretary General Ramat, for continuing the tradition, our tradition of sharing, even in the middle of the pandemic. And also thank you for the opportunity to co-organize this webinar series 2022 #1 with the UP Open University. It's also, we are very thankful for this opportunity to co-organize this one with you. So let me share my presentation. Okay, so as announced, our theme is the shape of ODL, or Open Distance Learning post-COVID. And as introduced, I am from the University of the Philippines Open University. And at present, I also serve as ambassador of the Open Educational Resources and board member of the International Council on Open and Distance Education, or ICE. In this manner, I'm not representing the Philippines, but also our AAOU organization in this organization, or ICD. Now, it's really answering the question, what is ODL now, 2 years after the pandemic? And in so doing, in trying to answer this question, what is ODL now after the pandemic, I will try to look at the enrollment trend of the massive open online courses, because for me, MOOCs is one concretization of open distance learning. So let's take a look with what happened with MOOC during the time of the pandemic, because this is one concretization of open distance learning. Let us also try to examine the possible drivers of open distance learning as a result of the pandemic. Look at the possible configurations, given those the experience that we've had during the time of pandemic doing open distance learning. What can be the possible configurations of ODL post-pandemic, and what will be its implications to us at the open universities? I mean, it's always something that we need to ask ourselves. What will be the implication that everyone had gone online? Well, how will it affect us, open universities? Okay, so first, let's take a look. What happened? The trend in the enrollment during the time of the pandemic. I'm showing you the figure for the Philippines. So the UP Open University has started offering massive open online courses since 2013. And during the time of the pandemic, imagine, during the pre-pandemic, ODEL, Open Distance E-Learning, pre-pandemic, this is until February 2020. Even if these courses are open, you don't have to pay any course fee, etc. We were only able to attract this number of offerings. So these are the title of MOOCs that we offered. These are the numbers of offerings for each title, for each topic. And we were only able to have this number of enrollment, this despite the fact that these courses are free, open, right? They just have to access the internet and enroll themselves in these courses. But during the pandemic, let's take a look. Starting March of 2020, these numbers are from March of 2020 until October of 2020, and these were the topics that we offered. And take a look at, of course, these numbers are not big if we will compare it with the top MOOC providers like Coursera, edX, FutureLearn, etc. But for us, the significant increase in the number of participants, enrollees in the massive open online courses that we offered, is really significant. Now, looking at these numbers, the explanation, the possible reasons for the numbers. Of course, during that time there was no choice. I mean, they had to learn. They have especially these courses were offered for the teachers, and they have to know how to teach online. They have to know how to teach in the remote mode of instruction, and they didn't have any choice but to do it online themselves. Before the pandemic, ODL they still have a choice. I mean, they can go face-to-face training. But during the pandemic, they had no choice because of the restrictions in the mobility, travel, etc. So they had to do it online. And that probably explained these numbers that we have here. They need to learn and they don't have any choice but to do it online. And these ones happen to be free, then they enrolled in this course. But we have to take note that we really offer these MOOCs to assist our fellow educators transition immediately from the face-to-face instruction to remote instruction. Okay. Now let's take a look at the general trend for MOOCs. And here we have here the top 3 MOOCs providers. We have the Coursera, edX, and the Future Learn. If we're going to compare the new registered users in 2019 and in 2020, we can see the very significant increase in the number of new registered learners in the MOOCs offered by these 3 providers. Again, note that the context of this comparison is MOOCs representing the concretization of open distance learning. So for Coursera, for instance, in 2019, there were 8 million new registered users. In 2020, it increased to 20 million. Same trend for edX and for Future Learn. Now, but if we're going to take a look at the number of learners from 2020 to 2021, we can now note a decreasing trend in the number of MOOC learners. Actually, it's MOOC learners, not really new learners, but MOOC learners from 2020 to 2021. So I'm trying to look for a data for 2022, but I couldn't yet find it, probably because it's still February and no new data can still be made available. But if we're going to look at this trend, 2 years from 2020 or 1 year from 2020 to 2021, we can already see a significant decrease in the number of learners for these MOOCs that we have available. So we can we say, or is it safe to assume that this kind of trend, as we slowly go back to the face-to-face instruction, mobility is less restricted now. Even the mass gatherings here in the Philippines, we're easing up now. Are we now starting to see a decrease in the patronage of open distance learning, as can be seen in this worldwide trend of new MOOC learners? Okay, so that is something for us to also watch out for, and what will be the implication when it comes to offering open distance learning courses. Okay, so what are the possible drivers of ODL post-COVID-19? Of course, earlier, Dr. Brown also briefed us on what happened, and we are all aware, we have experienced what happened during the start of the COVID pandemic, when almost all academic institutions were forced to shift immediately to remote instruction. If you would not shift, then you will also be forced to close your operations or close your university. So in here, we, as illustrated, something like even the university was put on a quarantine because we closed all our universities. So this response from academic sector or the education sector resulted in an unstructured boost in online teaching and learning. It was also shown earlier by Dr. Brown. And at the same time, it fast-forwarded the adoption of more broad-based online learning strategies and technologies. As I always say, even with a very little knowledge about online or remote instruction, our fellow educators were forced to do it, just so that we can ensure the continuity of learning among our various types of learners. I mean, not just the conventional learners, but all the types of learners that we have enrolled in our institution. I remember one time in one of our discussions, there was one university official who made a joke and said that, we've been advocating for open distance learning for so many years, integration of modern ICTs into the teaching and learning ecosystem, but it seems nobody has heard us. I mean, so many years of talking. But all of a sudden, here comes COVID, and in just a week or so, everybody is now into technology enhanced or technology enabled learning. So of course that was a joke, but I can sense the kind of message that that fellow educator was trying to convey, that we've been talking and talking and talking, and here comes so our joke then was, so should we be thankful that there's COVID? But of course we should not. But of course what we really want to see here is that the kind of response from our fellow educators is an opportunity for us to seize when we look into the possibility of integrating especially the modern ICTs into our teaching and learning ecosystem. So in here, we can see that during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, and probably immediately after the pandemic, of course, we still don't know when exactly it will end, but we are hoping that it will be soon. So during the time of the pandemic, when almost all academic institutions shifted to remote instruction, institutions have grown their catalogs of online courses. So they started probably with just a few, the courses that they have to offer so that their students can continue learning. But in the whole process, some or many universities have recognized the need to offer more online courses. So they have increased their list of online courses that they will offer, again, to the various types of learners. The faculty members, our fellow educators, they have learned that they can develop and engage in virtual classrooms. Earlier, of course, we have seen how our fellow educators did that, especially during the early months of doing remote instruction. But as recommended by Dr. Brown, how are we going to record our lectures, etc.? It should not be 2 hour long. It should be brief as much as possible so that we will not bore our students. So, and the faculty, our fellow educators learned through the process. I mean, in terms of being not so good practices and learning as they go along. And now they are confident that they can develop and engage their students in virtual classrooms. Both faculty and students who had not previously considered online learning, because, you know, and we at the ODL community, we know that there is the kind of perception about distance education, about online learning, but now that almost everybody is doing it, they now have a taste of doing it. Whereas before, they are really saying that it's not for them. I couldn't study through that mode. I couldn't teach in that mode. But given the experience during the pandemic, during the COVID-19 pandemic, they now had the taste and consider that, yes, I can do it. And in fact, it can still be we can still have authentic learning in that kind of instructional delivery. Of course, we have seen this, our fellow educators learning new technology skills. We have seen how they learn through the process, asking how they can use the Google Classroom, how they can use the Zoom platform, etc. But now, after almost 2 years of doing it, we can say that they have learned somehow the mastery of at least the more common platforms for technology for teaching and learning. And institutions with a minimal footprint in the online environment, now they are deploying many emergency remote courses and demonstrating the potential. They have recognized that, demonstrating the potential for scalability in the online learning mode. Before, many universities were just confined to the face-to-face, conventional or traditional mode of instruction. But given their experience in doing remote instruction, online learning, they now see the potential for scalability of doing online learning. So when we look at this totality, we can say that these are the things or the possible drivers for open distance learning even after the COVID-19. You know, of course, we know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, this is something that they need to do. They needed to do. Everyone has to do it. But after the COVID-19 pandemic, or when it becomes endemic at least, and students slowly go back to the campus, to their respective campuses, there is still that potential for universities to consider continue offering online courses, and that can also be a continuity of their initiatives or programs on open and distance learning. We can also see the increased ODL initiatives with institutions because they need to capitalize on the gains from the pandemic. They have made investments. Many academic institutions made investments on infrastructure, connectivity, including connectivity, and even building the capability of their teachers and their other staff at the university. So immediately after the pandemic, we can see, many academic institutions are now starting to create plans for effective distance learning. Again, because they have seen the potential of doing it even after the pandemic. They are now developing policies. They have started doing that during the pandemic because they have to have new policies that will be relevant to remote instruction. So they are now revising these policies for a longer term implementation of online learning. They are now assessing their experience, the best technologies and delivery methods for online learning courses, assemble the right online learning team who can do the instructional design, who can develop a system for providing learner support, etc., course development, even the research team, so that they can monitor and evaluate whatever initiatives that they will do or introduce into their ecosystem. Institutions are now re-examining their courses to retrofit them to meet the format and quality. Remember there was these discussions about remote instruction versus the well-planned distance education. So there was this group saying that remote instruction is not equivalent to distance education, and then there's this other group that what you are doing is not distance education because it's not well-planned in the way that distance education programs are being done or are being implemented. So after 2 years of the pandemic, institutions can now go back, re-examine their courses, and we'll try to retrofit them in such a way that the quality will no longer be questioned. Earlier, I think Dr. Tahira Bibi also mentioned something about the quality of distance education, online learning. But these institutions, given everything that they knew about quality of technology, enhanced technology-enabled instruction, and even the many frameworks, quality assurance frameworks, they can now look again at these courses and revise, retrofit them, refine them so that they will be more aligned with what distance education practitioners say about quality distance education courses. Now, institutions are also finding ways to support students. Before, of course, especially at the start of the pandemic, the main goal or the main concern was how to deliver instruction, the instructional content to your remote learners. But after 2 years, there is already the time for institutions to also look at the appropriate learner support system for those learners or for those students who may be opting to study online because of the flexibility and other benefits that it can provide to the learners. And we also have to consider that it's not just the learners who may be enjoying the flexibility of online learning. Probably many of our fellow educators are also enjoying. I mean, they don't want to go back to the restrictions of the face-to-face instruction, being there in front of your students, etc. But more of enjoying the flexibility of doing online teaching. So that's one. The ODL initiatives with institutions, because they also want to capitalize on the gains and the investments they made during the time of the pandemic. Post-COVID-19 ODL, of course, also based on our experience and based on our observation, not be talking about online internet and learning. We need to return to Generation 1 ODL with the traditional or the analog technologies. we see that the pandemic, during the time of the pandemic, and we have witnessed this, I think it's true even in Pakistan, in many countries here in Southeast Asia, the pandemic further exposed the lingering issues of the digital divide. So many of our learners and even our teachers lack access to the digital devices, the internet, and the sufficient bandwidth, such that when we think of video lectures, probably we also have to think of, do our learners have access to sufficient bandwidth to download the materials that we have uploaded in our YouTube channel, etc. Then it is probably essential for us to think how we can make all these learning resources available using the traditional or even the analog technologies. Okay, so we have seen, even here in the Philippines, we have seen how radio was utilized, how television was utilized, and how learning modules were delivered to the students in the printed format. So when we think of ODL, open distance learning, in the post-COVID era, there may also, we should also have that space of thinking the necessity of going back to the Generation 1 open distance learning framework. So I have mentioned this, many countries in Asia, and we have seen also now that there is this easing up in the restrictions. Many are clamoring for the return of the face-to-face instructions. This is one observation here in the Philippines. Instead of saying how can we improve our online delivery of courses, students, teachers are asking, when can we safely return to our classrooms? So these are the things, that the dynamics which can influence the shape of open distance learning after the COVID-19 pandemic. So we have seen the decrease in the enrollment in MOOCs, probably because they have learned or they have learned the essential things that they can learn. Probably they can now see the opportunity of having residential instruction, how universities have what they had undergone, which can for open distance learning. But there are also some observations that we need to consider. Technologies, even the preference of traditional and conventional mode of instruction. All these things and all these dynamics can possibly shape the framework of open distance learning after the COVID-19 pandemic. So what will now be the different configurations? For different institutions, there can be different configurations for open distance learning. Probably for many institutions, they will see distance learning, distance e-learning as a new business model. The scalability, the new group of learners who will study online. So it can be a new business model. If it is an open distance learning program, it's still a business model because they can even charge for the certification, for the transfer credits, for the open courses that they have completed. For many, or for some of the universities or academic institutions, open distance learning can be considered as their university social responsibility, especially for the government-funded institutions like my university. My university is a government-funded institution. And open distance learning before, during, and after COVID-19, we will look at it as part of our university social responsibility to contribute to the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals and making education as a common good. And this has been embodied in that 2021 publication of UNESCO, Reimagining Our Futures Together and the New Social Contract for Education. In here, there is this call, especially for academic institutions, to really try contributing to make education a public and a common good. So that will be part of university social responsibility and can be one of the configurations for ODL post-COVID-19. Now, what will be the implications to us at the open universities? given the possible direction of higher education, that many will engage in open distance learning. Many will engage in distance learning, not necessarily open, but there will definitely be some universities who will consider doing open distance learning. So what will now be the competitive advantage for us open universities? Now that many universities will consider or even implement open distance learning. So this is, for me, how we should position ourselves, open universities, especially as a Asian Association of Open Universities. We have to make available more open access courses. We've been in the position to do this. We've been in the position to champion the open in ODL by having more open access courses, the combination of technologies, not just the internet, but even the traditional technologies to provide the flexibility for access to the various types of learners, not only those who have access to the internet. We also have to continue working in the quality assurance framework so that if there is still that lingering perception that ODL is of lower quality, then we will also continue our efforts to erase the lingering perception about the quality of open distance e-learning. And we have to continue developing sustainability models for open distance learning. Probably many were asking, how can you sustain offering open courses? So we have to continue developing these sustainability models and share them with our fellow educators. So this is something that we at the Open University should continue working on, should continue doing, and continue sharing, especially in forums like this. So I think that's the last slide. So thank you very much for listening and for giving me the opportunity to share my insights, perspectives about open distance learning after the COVID-19 pandemic. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Melinda. She has given a lot of points, and the area covers a few of highlight I will again share with you people. First thing I must share that that future is ODL. When I, as an ambassador of ODL system, before pandemic, whenever I heard this word from the different forum of ODL system, so there were a question, the debate of face-to-face and the ODL system comparison, and many questions that how it can possible that the future is ODL system. Now, after pandemic, what we have gained that everyone knows that future is actually the ODL system. We have created a bridge between the learner and the learning. We have many, you can say here we are on generation 4 to 5 from starting ODL system from pen and book to the ubiquitous technology. So we have few further highlights that we need to shape the ODL systems. First, what we have gained from the pandemic as an ODL system, as a learner, we have a flexible mode. We have attraction from the learner or the continued learner or the lifelong learner that online courses are available, particularly MOOC. As Dr. Melinda, she is one of the, you can say, the expert of MOOCs, massive online open courses, and she knows very well that from 8 million to 20 million is a great achievement and attraction for the learners from all over the world to get the education or the continued education for the to this platform, either as Coursera, Future Learn. Now the second thing is teacher. Yes, the things which we need to plan to get the attraction from the management of the university to train their teacher to cope the skills of online or the technologically utilize that. Yes, this pandemic give us the opportunity as a teacher to improve our technological skills. And third thing is that management. Yes, now management is ready to invest on ODL system, to invest to because it's their survival. So they ready to draw the policies, they're ready to draw the procedures. Now we have another component, and that is the quality assurance framework. Yes, we need to somewhat reconsider our quality assurance framework by how we can motivate our learner as an online system by avoiding the cheating, as Dr. Brown also highlighted this. How can we avoid the cheating from this system, or the you can say malafide practices? Then other thing, the dropouters. A student who learn, they mostly cannot continue because this system required a self-management and self-directing. So they mostly sometimes they need intrinsic motivation. So we have to work on it by enhancing intrinsic motivation as well. So here we have some implementations of for the open universities, and then that is the maximum courses which we can provide. Dr. Brown also highlight that science can teach, laboratories can be online. So it means that we have to cover not only the social sciences courses, but also provide the opportunities to the scientists. That's welcome if you want to be a scientist. So we have to combine the technologies, synchronous or asynchronous modes. We can use that. We have a question answer framework for ODL system. So this is one of the opportunity Asian Association of Open University providing as a webinar through the assistance of the Trabuca University, and then developing sustainable model for ODL system. So yes, we are reimagining a new social future by connecting and stay connected. Okay, yes, thank you, my learned professors, for giving us opportunity to and provide your point of view to the participants.
Recording
Yes,
stopped.
dear participants, now it's a discussion
Recording in
and
progress.
question answer session. So we have question and yes, great. The question is from Fasir Rahman, ICE Institute. The question is, can assessment is essential for both teacher and student learner in these challenging time and transformative generation. What could be the future of online distance learning, and what could be the most effective assessment that can be benefit both the teacher and the learner, that would be able to measure effectiveness of online distance learning? Thank you. So this is a question from the Fasir Rahman, ICE Institute, UT. Yes, Professor Jain, and you may give your point of view on this.
Thank you. As far as distance learning goes, the way they put like, let's say, typical questions where it's multiple choice, that sort of thing, things are changing to ask something that is a more effective way of checking exactly what the student knows. I would have to say one thing that in the United States, they have what they call the MOOC started out, massive open online courses. And a good thing that happened was most of those courses were developed by the Ivy League schools, Yale, Harvard, Cornell, Columbia, Princeton, and other really top-notch schools like the Johns Hopkins. That really gave open learning courses a very good name. They were short, they were sweet, and to the point. Now, you didn't get you wouldn't get, let's say, 3 college credits for it. But what you would get is you would get a certificate for that course. And the cool thing about that was that certificate was from one of the best schools and one of the best professors in the country. So what I did with my students, like if I had a student, let's say in science, and let's say they were not doing well in genetics, I would have them team up and take a genetics course, a MUOC, from Harvard, one of the best names around. So they would get that and put it on their resume. Okay, they'd have their bachelor's degree there, but they would have a certificate from Harvard. Let me tell you, that brought people's eyes open. Hey, look at this. This student had, and that a lot of students got into that. That's a way of getting some very good learning from very good places. And I really think that can be expanded to go beyond certificates, and let's give them those college credits for it. Something that I think the United States is coming to do. You know, there's the MUOCs, which Coursera, edX, FutureLearn, all those sort of things. They during the pandemic, not as popular, but I think they're going to come back big time because you can plug those in anywhere. And I think that's really going to help open and distance learning, is developing those, especially the cost. What was really cool about these MUOCs, they were free. And if you actually wanted a certificate, they charge you something very small for the certificate. It was, sort of like $60 US dollars for it, which is nothing compared to paying for a regular college course in the United States. So I see that whole open learning thing. Yeah, we've got to change the way we do exams to make it so students can't easily, go out onto the internet and find the results they're looking for and plug them in. So we have to redesign that. But I think we're well underway. Like right now, the textbooks have changed the way they do the tests that they're put in there. The one I mentioned, OpenStax, and their textbooks, what they're doing, they really have that built in, but also for science and that sort of thing. Right now, I showed you things that were kind of hands-on learning. And the cool thing that's happening, it's going virtual. And virtual is working. Originally, they hated virtual because they wanted a hands-on kind of approach. But virtual is coming in big time. And let's face it, how does a pilot learn to fly an airplane? They start out with virtual. And those are things we've learned. And I think you're going to see what you guys are doing. It's really going to take off. Yeah, we're going to have to change the exams, that sort of thing. But I really think there's a tremendous future here. And I think what you've got going here is absolutely, this whole open learning is wonderful. And especially for students who don't have money. This is a great way to go. It really is.
Thank you, Professor Bra. Yes, we need to reconsider from traditional mode of assessment to the compatible assessment techniques for the ODL system, and simulation and virtual realities should be considered as a part of assessment system. Now we have our next question. Yes, that is from Johnny Season, Philippine Open University. Yes, your question is, aside from the increase in massive online open courses enrollment, are there differences in the completions rate and or the student outcome of the Open University Philippines? So she's asking about the MOOC courses pre and during COVID. Yes, Dr. Melinda,
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much, Joanne, for the question. Yes, aside from the increase in the MOOC enrollment during the pre and during the pandemic, we also noted the increase in the completion rate. Probably also because we have made some changes. We have made some changes in the design of our, we called it our inclusive training program, because there was really this need for us to train our the teachers especially, so aside, instead of just the MOOC that we usually offer pre-pandemic, what we did during the pandemic period was to have webinar sessions. Of course, we are all familiar with webinar, just like the one that we are doing now. We have so many webinar sessions. But what made our initiative different is that after the webinar session, where you can also get a certificate, just like what we have here, you can also go to the online course, watch the recorded video, and then do the learning activities, and be given another certificate for the completion of the online course. So you have a certificate for the webinar, and you will have a certificate for the online course. After completing the learning activities. What we also did was to have MOOC certification programs. So 2, 3, or 4 courses or modules to constitute one certification program. But before you can be given the certification, like for instance, certification in open distance learning for teachers, for instance, you should also complete a capstone requirement. We call it a re-entry action project. So we've been monitoring this also because we also need to have this enrollees complete the course and be able to implement the project. So the completion rate that we have observed, the pre-pandemic, something like 25% completion. It's really very low. 25-30% is the highest that we were able to get. But during the time of the pandemic, we were able to get 5% completion. So there's also that difference, not only in enrollment, but also in the completion rate, probably because of the design, how we designed open distance learning during the time of the pandemic. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Melinda. Yes, we are facing a challenge by a completion rate of MOOC courses. But definitely the free enrollment attract the MOOC courses. So let's find another motivation level to complete these MOOC courses. One thing I must say that now a majority of learners are comfortable with the online system. Due to this pandemic, they have more time with their Android phone or the devices, so they are more friendly and they can bear their time with this device. So let's have other research horizon on how to stay the MOOC course learners and how to give them completion certificates. Thank you. Now, next we have another question.
Okay. Yeah, because you also mentioned earlier about the intrinsic motivation.
Yes.
You mentioned that earlier, and that can be another factor. I mean, how can we tap on that intrinsic motivation of our learners so that they can complete these open online courses? So very important. I mean, I forgot to mention that aspect that you mentioned earlier.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Trabuca University. Mary, she is asking question from Dr. Melinda that first of all, congratulations to UPOU for the 21st anniversary. So I am very interested in your portrait of the significant increase in MOOC enrollment during the start of the pandemic. What is the biggest challenge you faced in the early pandemic situation, and what are the most efficient strategies you think to deal with these challenges? So Dr. Melinda, first identify the challenge relating to the MOOC and then its strategy.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mary, for the question. Yes, actually, we also learned from our the pre-pandemic implementation of MOOCs, and yeah, we realized that we have to have new strategies so that we can increase the completion rate. So what we did was not only to customize our MOOC offerings. If you have noted earlier in the table that I have shown, the titles of our MOOCs are really those that that were needed by our fellow educators. So like, for instance, how are you going to use a Google Classroom? At the time, everyone was in search for a learning platform, and the Google Classroom was there, very accessible. So that's one strategy. We have to identify which courses will be most attractive and will be most needed by our target learners. I mean, there's no such thing as the public is my learner and then are my learners. We have to customize. We have to make them more specific to the learners that we really want to reach. I mean, in that aspect, we veered away from the usual configuration of MOOCs. I mean, we have to make it more targeted. We have to make it more specific. The skills, the learning outcomes, specifically, the learning outcomes will have to be more specific so that the learners will be able to identify that, hey, these are exactly what I need. And I will enroll and complete this. And of course, they don't have to be long. I mean, you know, they should not drag to 2 weeks, etc. 3, at the most 5 days. That's all. And then we monitor. And again, that's something that we introduce. There has to be a monitoring system, and that can be provided to us by the learning analytics, the numbers in our learning management system, so that we will know who are accessing the courses, who are not, who are looking at the materials that we have shown. So we have to use all these tools that we have in our learning management system so that we can keep track of the progress of our learners in these open online courses. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Melinda, again. Yes, relevancy of education and you can say specific courses may attract the learners to complete their course, and we have a strategy to face this challenge. Right. Okay. Yes, we have another question. That is question from Andre UT. Yes, Professor Brown, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to it. At least what I found out, I showed you that I said students who didn't get online right away, I went after them. And one way or another, I got in touch with them. Yeah. And what we found is professors that did that, I was a dean at the time, so anyone who was reporting to me, I demanded it. So sure enough, 92% completion rate for the professors that did that. For professors who didn't do that, it was 60-some% completion rate. So that didn't mean they got an A, but they did finish the course. And I think by the professor reaching out right away to students who aren't there and making that connection, it made a tremendous difference.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. Now you have another question, that is Andre from the UT. On your slide, maybe slide 20, the number of students who passed the exam during online sessions was higher compared to the conventional session. I was surprised. As far as I know, engagement between the students and the teacher in conventional was closer, and the students could ask questions directly and receive responses instantly. Could you give further explanations why this happened based on your experience? If you want to add something, yes, Professor Brown.
Yes, the other thing, this was nursing students. And the ones who took it completely face-to-face, one thing, there were differences. One is they were students who were younger. Usually they were single and they could go to the college directly. And it wasn't a problem for them because they had a family there that was, supplying the money and all the rest. The other group were older students, many of them who already had a child and came back to college. And I would say they realized if they were going to try to finish that college degree, they needed to do this online. So they were more motivated than the younger students. So that, I think, figured on it because, you know, if they had like another job they had to attend to, or they had a little, you know, a baby to take care of, or sick parents, that kind of thing, they were really motivated to go and do the online courses, as opposed to a younger student who didn't have all those restrictions. So that didn't, you know, I think that was a major factor as well.
Thank you, Professor Brown. Now we have, I guess, another question. Yes. Okay. Again, UT, Professor Melinda, I like your statements. Remote instructions is not the same what distance education. Now in Indonesia, the terminology is distance education, although for the remote instructions, I would like to know more how these two terminologies are different. Okay, she wants a difference between these two terminologies.
Well, actually, if you're going to read the literature, there's really a discourse about it, especially during the start of the pandemic, when, as I mentioned earlier, distance education practitioners would not call what happened at that time as distance education, simply because of the lack of planning. I mean, those who are into distance education, implementation of distance education programs, you know how we prepare our course materials, how we put in place our learner support system, like our library system, our counseling system, etc., so that even if our students are not there in the campus, they can study and they will be provided with the things that they need so that they can complete their courses. In the remote instruction, as we have observed, especially during the start of the pandemic, it's just transferring their classes. Instead of doing it in a classroom, they will do it in a platform, like a Google Classroom or a Zoom platform. And the teacher will be there just lecturing for 2 hours. If your class is 1 hour, the teacher will be there lecturing for 1 hour. That is not something that we do in distance education, right? I mean, we planned everything. And even in the learning design, like the backward design process, we start with the end in mind, all those things. We are implementing that when we are designing our materials and designing the learning for a distance education program. Those, our colleagues who implemented remote instruction, did not have that luxury to plan and design and completely package their learning modules. That's why at the start of the pandemic, they really gave that difference between a very well-planned distance education program and the remote instruction that happened during that time. But as we go along, I mean, as we continued implementing remote instruction, we also emphasize the need for planning, the need for designing well the learning in the so that difference, that distinction has become blurred at this point. Especially now that those who engage in remote instruction, they are now very much conscious about the quality. And given the many learnings of the experience, like for instance, what Dr. Brown mentioned earlier, you should not recording your video for 2 hours, just make it 5 minutes, right? 5-7 minutes. The longest will be 7 minutes. Otherwise, your students will be sleeping before they can finish the whole. So we have learned all these things. And these are the very things that we are advocating in distance education programs and in the modules that we are developing for distance education. So now remote instruction is already doing that. So it's already the distinction, the lines differentiating them are now becoming blurred. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Melinda. I guess we have a time for 1 and 2 more questions. Yes, Alicia from Malaysia. Yes, Alicia, your question is, the pandemic has some impacts on education. Pandemic have many impacts on education. As you mentioned, some students experiences problem relating to their mental health. What are your suggestions for educators in higher education who were not used to doing online learning in terms of personal approach to students, and what are the most important aspect they need to focus on to cope with this problem. So Professor Brown, you have a question about the mental health of the students during the pandemic, and what you have your point of view on this.
I'm glad you asked that question because I had a slide I deleted that I really wanted to talk about. And it was really the first thing when you went into one of my courses, and I don't care what school I was teaching for, but my example is going to be from the City University of New York School of Professional Studies. There, the first thing that student would see when they opened the course would be an announcement all about, if you're having trouble at all, here is numbers you can call and people you can talk to. You can email them, you can text them. And also as the professor, don't be afraid to get in touch with me. You can call me, you can text me, that kind of thing. And that was so important because we put it right up top on every course, the very first thing, because you really didn't want those students. So many of them were committing suicide in the United States. It was horrible. And by having that there, and then let's say if there was a student that looked like there was a problem like that, especially discussions, that sort of thing, or someone not showing up, that's another reason for the professor to get in touch with them and make sure they're okay. Because if they get stumped on something, because some of the things I was teaching was science, and they had to do a laboratory, whether it was a hands-on thing or it was virtual. Many times they'd get stuck, and I would tell them, "Hey, don't worry about it. Call me, reach out to me," instead of dealing with 12 emails going back and forth. Don't be afraid to call me. And that way the professor reaches out to the students. And that's another reason why I pulled mentors into the course, to really try to be there for the students, someone in that profession who they want to go and, talk to and all the rest. And what's cool, while they were taking the course, they were dealing with those mentors. So I think those are all important things. And really, right up front, have that there, what the student can do if they're having any trouble. And hopefully it made a difference.
Thank you very much, Professor Brown. Yes, teaching is that's why we call that teaching is a noble profession, that we are available as a mentor to our students and the learner. But there is another question. We are accessible to our students for 24 hours. What will happen, or who will manage the mental health issues of the teachers? So let's have another last question. We have a lot of questions from the participants, but as you know, we have a time limit. So let's have a quick last question if we have. Yes, Indra, I don't know either. She is from UT. She have a question again to Dr. Brown. It is said that online learning for 2 hours can kill students. It is a fact that online learning in Indonesia takes at least 2 hours with a break of 15 minutes and followed by 2 hours of relearning. How did Dr. James respond about the learning time, and are there other ways that students can apply so that they don't feel bored? Thank you. Yes.
Now, first of all, that thing I said about 2 hours can kill students, that was a joke. Okay. It'll bore them to death, that kind of thing. And what I deliberately tried to do was cut those, so it wasn't all the same kind of learning. They would have a video here, then they would have something else they would be doing. And it was that cut. And it was also, so they didn't have to all do it that way. Let's say this was all happening on a Friday afternoon. Well, let's say they worked on a Friday afternoon. They wanted to do it Saturday morning. Okay. That sort of, you could break it up. And I think that was a lot better for the outcomes, because if you had it so that it was pretty much, I designed things on a weekly basis. So this is what you're going to complete this week. And if there was something came up, like a lot of my students at the time, they were working in healthcare. They were, because of the pandemic, they were putting in 16-hour days and that kind of thing. And if they came up and told me something like that, no problem. Next week's fine. You know, so that flexibility is important. So, and there's different ways of designing it. And, you know, as long as you've got that flexibility there, I think that's why you get the retention. Because if you make a lot of hard and fast things, you got to be here for this, you're going to lose them. So anyhow, that's my advice.
Yes.
So,
George,
yes.
In addition to what Dr. Brown mentioned, I think what we are recommending is really flipping your online classroom. I mean, Dr. Brown mentioned about recording your video lectures. The students can watch them at their own time, their own place and pace. And when you design your synchronous online sessions, when you meet your students, then there can be activities in the same, you know, the way you design a flip online or a flip classroom, so that you will take advantage of your synchronous sessions, and the students will not just be listening to your lecture in your synchronous online meeting. So yes, as Dr. Brown has mentioned, there are many strategies which we can do so that we will not be killing our students with a 2-hour lecture session. So that's all from my end. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Now it's time to say goodbye from my side and say thanks to the team, our experts. I have learned a lot and enjoyed this session, and even haven't feel that we are more than 5 minutes taken from this question answer sessions. We have a lot of questions here, but as you know, the time we have our limits. Let's see if the Tribeca University plan another phase or the second series of the same topic, because many questions are still needs to answer and get the opinion from our experts. Yes, thank you. Thank you all. And yes, Dr. Rahmat, now I'm handing over the control to you. Once again, all the friends from Tribeca University, Dr. Tahira is saying Assalamu alaikum and lot of prayers from my side and from my university. Thank you, Professor James Brown, and thank you, Dr. Melinda, for giving
I
time.
want to thank you. This was a true honor being here and meeting all of you. It's really a beautiful thing, and you are all saving lives. You really are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tahira Bibi. Okay. There are some more questions actually in the chat, as Dr. Tahira mentioned just now. And that, yeah, what I like is that the participants are discussing in the chat room. And then, to be honest, this webinar is one of the what I like most. This is very inspiring, and then there are many experiences I learned, and hopefully that other participants attending this webinar, is, if I see from the participant here, there are 194 participants. And before we continue to the last session, I would like to award a certificate to Dr. James Brown virtually. Our colleagues, please. Okay, this is the certificate for Dr. James Brown. Thank you very much. And we do hope that we can have another session with you. And then we will be contacting with you soon.
You bet. And this was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then the second certificate, I would hand over it to Dr. Melinda Bandalaria. Thank you very much for sharing experience. And then the last one is to our moderator today, Dr. Tahira Bibi. All right.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks a lot.
And then our dear colleagues, I would like to inform you that we all invite you to submit your papers to our AAOU journal. For your information that the AAOU journal is now indexed in Scopus. So please be prepared from now on and submit your paper to our journal. And you can see that the website, and then if you also Google from your internet, you can go directly to our journal, or you can access through our AAOU website. And for your information, usually those who are published in AAOU will have a reward from the AAOU, such as a free registration fee for the AAOU conference. Next year will be in Jeju Island. And then also would like to invite you all to the next AAOU webinar, which will be held 2 months from today. Okay, once again, thank you very much for your participation. To Dr. James, once again, thank you very much. And then it is quite late in your place. And good night. And then for Mamel, enjoy your day in Philippines. And then our colleagues from Malaysia and also from Pakistan, so Indonesia and parts of the world, enjoy your day. And then this is the feedback I need from you for our further improvement. Thank you very much and good day, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.